USPs, brand identities, and what the hell is this podcast even about? That's what we're going to be talking about today on this episode of the EpicConversions.com podcast. Thanks so much for joining me. My name is Cam Fats, aka Cam Jennings, and I'll be your host this morning, this bright and early Monday morning. Guys, listen, I want to talk to you guys about unique selling propositions. And I want to talk to you about how that relates to your brand identity online. And then I'm going to get into a little bit of, what I'm trying to accomplish with this podcast. And let me just start here with this podcast. That's a great place to start. I'll be the first one to tell you, this podcast, I don't have a unique selling proposition podcast. I don't have a brand identity for this podcast yet. It is a journey for me. I am trying to discover it organically. Here's what I do know. I want to focus on email marketing and I want to focus on list building. And these are the things that I want to focus on with this podcast primarily. And the reason I want to focus on those things so much, you guys, is because I know for a fact, my experience, that is where the money is. That is where the money is. And if I want to help you make money online, then I'd rather just specialize in the thing that matters the most. And I can tell you right now, the thing that matters the most, if you want to make money online, is email marketing and list building. Point blank. Bottom line, I don't care if you're building that list by launching products or you're building that list by buying solo ads. The list building and the email marketing is absolutely the core of any good online business. Anyways, that's what I'll say about that. And when it comes to, that's what I'll say about this podcast here. It is really a work in progress. So if you're tuning into this podcast, if you're tuning into this EpicConversions.com podcast with me, you know what, man, I'm on a journey, right? And I tell you what, as an entrepreneur, I think we're at our best when we don't know everything. I think we're at our best when we're learning. And I talked about that last episode, so I'm not going to get into that too much, but I really do think we're at our best when we are learning. In a future episode, I might talk about the benefits of podcasting as I see them. In the last episode, I noticed I talked a lot about why I moved away from the product launch space and moved into podcasting, but I didn't really talk about why I was moving into podcasting, why I chose podcasting. I focused a lot on just why I was leaving that space. So maybe in a future episode, I will focus on that and talk about podcasting a little bit more. But you know what? I wouldn't mind getting about 20 or 30 episodes under my belt before I jumped into that topic, to be honest with you, even though I have my reasons right now why I decided to move in this direction. But that's neither here nor there. I want to tell you guys a little bit of story about this whole USP thing and brand identity thing, because when I say unique selling proposition, you might think, bewilderment, right? You might think I don't have one. And when people tell you you need one, you probably walk around like trying to figure out how to come up with one. It seems daunting. It seems like there are no unique selling propositions. They've all been taken. And that's where a lot of people are, I think. And a lot of people, I think, tend to overlook the unique selling proposition and they move right on into just tactics. And what can I do to start putting some people on my list and to start making some things happen and to start making some money? And they don't put a lot of time and attention into their unique selling proposition or their brand identity for that matter. What is my brand identity? What makes me different than everybody else? How do I differentiate myself? What am I doing here? What is all this? How am I different from like the 1,000 other people that are trying to make money online, right? How am I any different, right? So these are questions, and they're important questions that people need to ask themselves. The problem is, these are some of the questions that people ask themselves at the very beginning of their online journey. And nobody ever tells them, hey, listen, sometimes those questions can't be answered right in the beginning, right? It'd be great if you could answer those questions right in the beginning and you had it narrowed down perfectly. You had a unique selling proposition, you had a brand identity, and you just planted your flag down and went hardcore, and that would be great. But it's not realistic, and it doesn't usually happen like that for a lot of people. A lot of people start with this general idea And then as they go, they shape it and they shape it and they get more well defined, right? Let me tell you a story about bottled water. All right. When I was a kid, I'll never forget this. This was in the 90s. Probably more like in the 80s, late 80s, early 90s. I'll never forget my dad saying, "Why in the heck would I buy bottled water? I can just get it out of the tap over there for free. It's absolute nonsense." Right? And I thought, man, my dad's smart. He makes a lot of sense. Why would anybody buy bottled water? That's stupid. Right? Flash forward to today, 35 years later, flash forward to today, and nobody drinks water out of the tap anymore. If people are drinking water out of the tap, they're either filtering that water, they have some kind of water softener, some kind of water filtration system hooked up to their line, or they're just buying bottled water and they're just not drinking out of the tap, right? People are afraid to drink out of the tap. They're afraid they're going to, get some bad water or something, right? So what a difference those 35 years have made, and the way people think. But let's take that idea of bottled water for a second, because we're talking about something that should all pretty much taste the same. Everybody's water should pretty much taste the same. We know what water tastes like. It doesn't really taste like anything. It's cold, it's wet, and it really doesn't taste like anything, right? And if it does taste like something, that's not really that good. We want it to have very little flavor at all, right? So if this thing tastes like nothing, or it's supposed to taste like nothing, why would we have so many different brands of bottled water? We have Dasani, we have Aquafina, we have lava water, we have Fiji water, we have Nestle, we have all these different brands. It goes on and on and on. I could list tons of different brands of bottled water. And it's like, why do we have so many brands? And why are some bottled waters more expensive than other bottled waters? And what you'll notice is, your first response is probably to say, well, some of them are higher quality. How are they higher quality? They've been filtered better. They have sourced themselves from a better spring. There's only so many natural springs in the world. How come this spring water is more expensive than this spring water? Does it come from a better natural spring than this other natural spring over here? Oh, well, this one comes from the mountains of the Netherlands, so it's clearly the best bottled water or whatever. It's kind of a funny thing, and I'm telling you, when you run into little paradoxes like that, little things where it just seems like the tiniest nuances changes the value of something, you're dealing with marketing strategy at this point, right? You're dealing with layers of marketing that has been implanted into your brain. And that's what's happened with bottled water. Most of what we believe and most of what we see out there when it comes to bottled water and our selection of bottled water and what we think is quality bottled water and not quality bottled water, it's all from marketing. We're talking about something that generally just tastes the same all the way around. Most of this water pretty much tastes about the same. So it's about marketing, right? And all these bottled water companies have gotten incredibly gifted marketers. They've gotten incredibly gifted marketers. They're very, very good at making you feel like their bottled water is quality. It's the best. It's better than this other bottled water. How do they do it? They do it with imagery, right? The imagery on the bottle of water. They do it with the shape of the bottle. They'll try to differentiate themselves with the shape of the bottle. Because think about it. They can't do it with the actual product. The actual product really doesn't taste that much different than all the other products that are the water. It's just water. It tastes like nothing. Water is not supposed to taste like anything, right? So they can't really differentiate themselves with the actual product. They have to do it with how they present the product. So that's very, very interesting. And let me tell you something. That's something that you can take away into the internet marketing space. Because the fact of the matter is, like, at the bottom of it, at the end of the day, you got a million different people teaching people how to build an email list. You got a million different people teaching you how to do email marketing. You have a million different people teaching you how to create and release products. You have a million different people teaching you how to run solo ads, or whatever aspect of internet marketing you're trying to focus on. There's a ton of people teaching you how to do it, right? And you teaching that stuff, the actual stuff you're teaching is probably not going to be that much different than what they're teaching. So it's very similar to bottled water. And you got to ask yourself, man, I really need to take a lesson from some of these bottled water companies and try to figure out how I can differentiate myself and make my brand identity different, right? Make my unique selling proposition more about how I'm doing it, not necessarily what I'm doing. I hope that makes sense. What makes you different? It's kind of a funny thing. And I think when we talk about brand identity, I don't think a lot of people give this thought. When they get started trying to make money online, they don't think a lot about their brand and how they can actually have an identity. And if they do think about their brand, they don't go much farther than the brand itself. They don't think about, what is my brand's identity? What is that? And if they do think about it, like I said before, it's a little daunting and it's hard for them to come up with, right? And if they do come up with it, I promise you, it'll pivot. Within 2 years, it'll probably change a little bit, okay? I'll give you an example. When I used to play a lot of music. I'm still a musician, but I used to play in a lot of bands all over the place. And I remember when I first started recording our practices. I would record our practices, and then I would record our shows. And I would say, I would think in my mind, like, man, we are rocking out on stage, man. I was really feeling the music. I was rocking, right? And then I'd play the video back, and to my surprise, it looked like I was just kind of standing there, not really feeling the music at all, just kind of just standing there, not really doing much. It was an eye-opener, right? And what it taught me was, man, I need to kind of exaggerate my actions. And after watching those videos, I figured out I really need to exaggerate my actions, more than I normally would. I mean, really throw myself into it. If I thought I was like kind of headbanging a little bit to the music because I was into it, I figured out, no, that's not good enough. For this to pick up, for this to translate to the audience, man, I really need to get into it and headbang, If I want to it doesn't matter. You guys get the point. I really had to exaggerate my actions for that to translate to the audience, but I didn't know it until I saw it on video. So what does that mean for you? Well, when we talk about brand identity, a lot of times that starts with just being yourself, but you need to take some of the aspects of yourself, right? Some of the aspects of who you are and what you're about, and you need to maybe kind of exaggerate that a little bit. Exaggerate it, If you think you're kind of funny, maybe put it on 10, And I think that this might be a hard concept to explain, and I'm not really going to try to explain it that much. This is a free podcast. And you know what? I have an insiders club, and we'll get into these topics even hot and more heavy in there. But for this free podcast, it's kind of beyond the scope of this little 20-minute show. If you get it, you get it. And if you don't, you don't. But the fact of the matter is, when it comes to brand identity, it starts with just being yourself. And then you kind of need to exaggerate some of those things a little bit. Whatever the one or two big things you become known for is, it's not a bad idea to kind of exaggerate it a little bit. Doesn't mean lie. It doesn't mean that. It just means if you don't exaggerate it, a lot of the people, it won't come across to a lot of people. Just like back in the day when I thought I was rocking out on stage, but when I looked at the video, it didn't look like I was doing anything. So a lot of times what you see in your mind is a little different than what everyone else is seeing. So when it comes to your brand identity and the content you're putting out there, if you think you're being a little edgy in your content, you know what? You should double down. You should make it twice as edgy. If you think you're giving a little bit of value, double down, give twice as much. If you think you're being a little bit funny in your content, double down. Try telling funnier jokes, even more jokes. Make it even more obvious. Exaggerate it, right? And this is just the truth, right? Because it doesn't translate to your audience. What you see in here, you're seeing more than what they see, and it just doesn't translate well. So I wanted to say that. And also I wanted to say that, you figure these things out as you go. Okay. Things like a brand identity and things like a unique selling proposition, you need to understand these things pivot as you go. And, you might not even start out with one at all, right? The thing is, you need to be aware that you are searching for that identity. Okay. You need to be aware that you're searching for the identity. If you're aware that you're searching for the identity, you're looking for your unique selling proposition, then it's okay that you don't have one right now. Okay. You can move forward not having one, but understanding that you're looking for that identity. You're trying to kind of figure out what the identity of your thing is. It might take a little while to figure it out. This podcast is a prime example. I know I want this podcast to focus on email marketing and list building, but I also don't really know what the brand identity for this is. I know it's linked to Epic Conversions, my publishing company, and I know that I want to help people with their online marketing, but I also know the best way to do that was with email marketing and list building. So I want to focus on that. But as far as like, what is this podcast identity? I really don't know yet. And I'm okay with not knowing because I know I'm searching for it. So I got a lesson for you guys when it comes to this thing. Before I do though, let me just mention this really quick. If you're out there right now and you're trying to succeed online, I want you to go over to epicconversions.com and I want you to get your free copy of 10 email hacks. You're going to absolutely love it. And it's going to help you really open up some doors when it comes to email marketing. Now, I will say I've put an extra little video in there for you that's going to show you how to use those tactics, not just for email marketing, but even if you don't have an email list yet. You can still use the 10 email hacks even if you don't have a list. So if you're watching this podcast right now and you're interested in making money online, there's really no reason why you wouldn't go over to epicconversions.com and pick that up. Only if you don't like money. If you like money, go pick up the free report. It's at epicconversions.com. You can't miss it. Okay. Now, what's the lesson behind all of this? All right. First of all, you need a unique selling proposition. You need a brand identity. All right. The first step to getting those things is to just be yourself with your content that you're putting out there. Right. Your free content, your paid content, anything you're putting out there into the marketplace, any messaging you're putting out there into the marketplace, just be yourself, man. Be yourself like you would if you were talking to your friends, okay? The second thing I want you to realize is you probably need to exaggerate a little bit of yourself, because if you don't exaggerate it a little bit, it's not going to shine through. People aren't going to get it, and you're just going to fade into the background. You know what I'm saying? You're just going to fade into the background because there's a lot of people trying to do this stuff, and you really need to kind of exaggerate it a little bit, okay? And then the third thing that you need to realize is unique selling propositions and brand identities don't happen overnight. It's not something you can just spend a couple hours on and boom, I got it. I got my USP and my brand identity. I got it. No, it doesn't work that way. I mean, you might be one of the lucky ones to start out with a unique selling proposition. Maybe someone handed you one or something. Maybe you opened up a fortune cookie and like it was inside. Hey, your unique selling proposition is this. Use this. Maybe. I don't usually get fortune cookies that good personally, but maybe. I guarantee you, generally, your unique selling proposition and your brand identity is probably going to be a work in progress. The important thing is that you're being yourself, you're exaggerating a little bit of yourself, and you're searching for that brand identity and that unique selling proposition. And what do I mean by searching? What I mean is you're looking at what you're doing, you're looking at what people are responding to well, and then you're doubling down on that stuff. What if you tell a couple of jokes in this email or this piece of content you put out there, and in this other email, you started quoting some long-lost philosopher and then went into some content to help people, right? And let's say no one responded to the philosopher stuff, but they really responded to the joke stuff. What do? You start doubling down on the joke stuff because that's what people were responding to. And maybe that kind of becomes part of your brand identity, right? And so you kind of exaggerate that part of yourself, the humor part, Anyways, I hope this all makes sense to you. If you gotten value out of this today and you're watching on YouTube, I'd love for you to leave me a comment. If you've gotten value out of this today and you're watching on Anchor or you're listening on anchor.fm, I would love for you to leave me a recorded message. Okay, I'd love for you to do it. I'd love for you to share this podcast with someone you think it might help. And look, man, I hope you've gotten value out of this one today. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. And again, get over to epicconversions.com, pick up your free copy of 10 email hacks, hoax, hulks, the incredible hacks. Pick up your free copy. It's over at epicconversions.com. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm out. I'll see you guys on Wednesday.